Hello, happiness seekers. I'm work psychologist Klaudia Mitura, and I'm on a journey to test drive and discover the best happiness hacks from leading experts and share what I've learned with you. This episode of End Happiness is a little bit different because I'm sharing my own journey on happiness with my friend Leyla Okhai via her podcast, Diverse Minds. I had a deep conversation with Leyla on her podcast about the fact that happiness is not plastering a smile on your face to pretend that all is okay. Instead, we discussed rooted and practical ideas for everyone going through a very challenging time. So in the next 25 minutes, we covered how I coped with a trying time in my life back in 2020, not a great year for me, what the term happiness actually means, how workplaces can make people happy, and my favorite top 3 tips for looking after my mental health that I really stick to and incorporate daily. So I really hope you will enjoy this interview, even though it's a little bit different. And I hope to see you very soon with my regular episodes where I speak to experts to incorporate their tips into my personal happiness journey and share my experiences with you, so that hopefully you are becoming more resilient, successful, and happy. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being.
Welcome to the 161st episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast, and this is the final episode in our series on personal development. And I'm excited to say we're focusing on happiness, what it means and how it contributes to positive personal development. To join me in doing this is the joyous Klaudia Mitura. Klaudia is a work psychologist who explores the science of happiness and tests out different methods for making a personal change and leading a happier life. She works as a learning and development specialist at the Science Museum Group, building a learning culture and boosting happiness in the workplace to drive business growth and innovation. She's the host of the award-winning And Happiness podcast, exploring the bold question, what makes us happy? And do check out the episode with me on how to expand your external stories. A link is in the show notes. And for the last 10 years, she has been applying scientific research on employee engagement to design and implement energetic, creative, and data-driven programs to empower individuals to be at their best at work. Her approach towards learning and development is based on empowerment, mastery, and purpose. So, Klaudia, a huge welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Leyla. I'm so excited.
We're super excited to have you. And, I read out your bio, told listeners a little bit about yourself, but I think it's really great for them to hear what you're working on at the moment. What are the projects that you've got on and that are bringing you some joy?
Oh my goodness. I think the biggest project that is bringing me some joy is actually putting all the tips and everything I've learned about happiness into a book format. So I've decided that I would love to share with the listeners just everything condensed in a nice capsule of this is what I've learned on my journey of testing out happiness. So I'm working with a book mentor and I have tight deadlines on writing certain amount of words a week or a month. And that's one of the exciting projects that's giving me that purpose and uplift currently.
Amazing. That is super exciting. I hope we can come to the book launch.
Yes, at some point. I feel like it will take forever before I finish that, but it is coming. It is coming.
Oh, that's brilliant, Klaudia. So I think it'd be really great to hear about your journey to becoming a happiness expert. How did this happen? What was your journey? And, how did you arrive at this point of being this expert?
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, Leyla, I'm not sure I would describe myself as happiness expert, but I'll take it as a compliment. Thank you so much. So I guess my interests always have been within learning and development, and I've been a specialist within that field for last 14 years, working for various organizations or building that happy workplace and learning culture. But personally, the key moment in my life that really made me focus on the topic of happiness and specifically the science of happiness was when in 2020 and 2021 I really hit a low in my personal life. So that was during the first COVID pandemic, the first COVID lockdown. I think that's the correct phrase. I'm not sure what the kind of the terminology. When I lost my job, I needed to reschedule my wedding. I had literally a leak from a neighbor upstairs, and no one was able to come and repair it because everything obviously stopped in the world. Within that time, I got COVID myself, and I was really sick for over 8 weeks. Through that time, through that journey, and so much happening also with my family that I couldn't get to, who live in Poland. Also, some time ago, my father was diagnosed with a lung cancer. All of this all happening made me kind of realize that, I would love to be happy even for 1 minute, even 1 minute a day, because I feel all of these really complex emotions from anxiety to fear to sadness to depression. It's so tricky that I would love to be happy even for a split second. And that made me really realize that, it's easy to be happy when life is great. But what about when life is really, really tricky? And being a psychologist, being a scientist myself, I thought, you know what, I'm going to look into science of happiness. I'm going to really explore what's out there, what's supposed to help me to be happy, and I'm going to test it out. And that's really how my podcast started and my really interest in happiness. And I'm still on that journey, which is really, really exciting. But I guess that was the kind of a turning point for me to go into the science of happiness.
So I had no idea that those are all the things that you went through. And so thank you for sharing them, not only with me, but with the listeners. Oh my goodness. And when you mentioned the leak and no one being able to fix it, my heart went into my mouth because I cannot imagine, and obviously your dad's illness, not being able to get there, but things that when we can't solve things immediately, it's very, very stressful. So Klaudia, how did you cope with that? How did you cope with seeing the leak, feeling trapped, all of that? What did you put into place?
The first aspect was this idea that I'm concentrating on happiness weekly. So what happened? I given myself a purpose that was beyond everything that was happening. That was only for me to give me a mind rest and a mind break. And that was really important for me because I'm actually quite anxious individual and I go easily into catastrophizing. So it was really important for me to take that time and have a different purpose. So my mind thinks about something else. So researching a science of happiness, researching well-being methods, trying them out was giving me that purpose and giving me that rest that then I was able to transfer the learnings and transfer some of the approach and perspective into then looking at all of the specific issues and problems and trying to solve them in a really tiny steps, in a really, really tiny steps. But that was the biggest aspect for me, purpose and perspective.
And that's amazing because I think when all these things happen to people, and I think it's very rare that this year I don't meet someone who hasn't got, they're not juggling 20 plates, right? I've just been feeling really overwhelmed and I just said, I just can't cope. And I've just said to myself, I have to take it an hour at a time. I can't focus on more than that. That's literally been my phrase for the last 6 months. But obviously personal development is the last place or thing people want to think about when all this is going on. It consumes you, like you said, and I totally resonate with being an anxious person too. So how can people, really make small steps towards this? So someone might be listening and going, oh, that's all very well, but I really couldn't do that. What would you say to them?
Yeah, and you're right. It won't work for everyone. We all need different things. But the way I dealt with it is that I given myself 30 minutes a day towards thinking about my happiness. And that 30 minutes a day was something that was helping me to set me for the rest of the challenges that were happening in the day. And for me, those were really three specific things. So first of all, it was just 5 minutes of breathing, just box breathing to just really calm down my body. That was really, really important. It was 10 minutes of gratitude exercise. And when people say gratitude, oh no, what are you grateful for? Your first response is this, are you kidding me? Aren't you seeing what's happening around me? Is this a joke? But I had a gratitude buddy. So me and my friend had this bet that every day we got, no matter what's happening, we're going to message one or two things on WhatsApp that we're grateful for, even if it is so lame as I'm drinking my favorite green tea. And this is what I can afford today in terms of gratitude, because everything else is just too much overwhelming. So that was my almost like 15 minutes. And then the rest 15 minutes was that refocusing on thinking of something else. And that could have been by having a walk in nature, listening to podcasts and learning something, listening to favorite music, doing something creative. So my brain will just stop thinking. And I really truly know from experience that when we going through something challenging and difficult, the last on our list is let me start crafting something. I let's be, you're thinking like, I don't know what to do with all of this in my life. And shall I be now, crafting car postcards? But it's really interesting that idea of learning, of mind rest, and really sticking, even if you feel I cannot do this right now, the more you think I cannot do this right now, the more you need it. And for me personally, that was really helping me. 30 minutes a day, every day, no matter what. And you would work, and I guess you would find other things that are good for you. Some people exercise, some people want to go and have a chat with a friend. Some people will, cuddle their cat, whatever it is. But it's just the idea of a routine that you're concentrating on your happiness every single day.
Oh, that's brilliant. So practical and so helpful. And so then I wanted to ask you then, for you personally, what does the term happiness mean? How do you know when you're happy and when you've kind of reached that realistic happiness point within your daily, either your daily practice or, what does it mean to you? And again, it's going to mean different things to different people, but what does happiness mean to you?
Okay, I love it. And you know what? Again, I'm going to give very scientific answer in here because the kind of science helped me to appreciate the concept of happiness more. So definitely for me, so let me start with what happiness isn't for me. It's definitely not about avoiding negative emotions. It's definitely not about feeling good and upbeat here and there. For me personally, happiness is, and as we know actually from research, so I'm completely stealing it from research, is on one hand is that day to day, how happy do I feel? So almost your ratio of positive emotions to negative emotions. So we still have negative emotions, that's fine, but are we craving and experiencing positive emotions? But then elevating it to how satisfied I feel with my life overall and how much my life has meaning. So, and that really helped me because in that case, I know that I might not be happy today. I might have a very rubbish day. I may be really going through something difficult, but that's okay because actually I'm a happy person because I feel that overall life satisfaction. And that really helped me during the tough times. So for me, happiness has those two components: day to day, ordinary moments that we all love, that brings us that joy, that connection. But then also overall, I'm proud of my life. I see meaning in my life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think some of it's drawn from Professor Martin Seligman's, positive psychology. So I'll link that in the show notes. Thank you so much. And that is very, very helpful, because I think often in the West, we think about happiness as party time 24/7, which it isn't. But it might be for some people, and that's great if that's you. But I think for many of us, anyone who's done house renovations, it's time to vomit in a bucket. But but yeah, so that's very, very helpful, Klaudia. And then thinking about the workplace, then, how do you think workplaces, and this is exactly what you do in your day job, can make people happier at work and contribute to their personal development?
Yes, absolutely. So I think there are different components. And again, there's so much occupational research done around this. And I'm seeing this in practice, but I also know that there is just so much science behind. The model that I really like to use is by Daniel Pink. It has 5 elements that that inform us that actually, if we have those 5 elements in the workplace, then we increasing employee engagement and people feel happier. So starting with the level of fairness. So really, as employers, we want to have fair working conditions, fair pay, fair opportunities in the workplace. The more fairness we have, the happier people are. Of course, fairness is not enough. We know we've been in situations, I'm sure that you've been maybe in a very fair workplace, but actually you've still been unhappy. And that's because we have then other elements like sense of belonging. Do people feel they belong? And this could be from inclusion diversity perspective, but also from social perspective. We like people that we work with and we feel accepted by them. There is also idea of purpose. So people will feel happier if they connect it with their purpose. So in here we have fantastic work by Amy Wrześniewski, and I always quote Amy Wrześniewski because she has a Polish heritage and I can pronounce her name correctly. But Amy Wrześniewski coined a job crafting, which is this idea of linking operational tasks that we do daily with the overall purpose of the organizations. And, I spend lots of time teaching my managers how to do that, to make sure that colleagues are connected with the purpose of the organization. Autonomy. So no one loves micromanagement. I'm sorry. So people are happier if they have autonomy to be creative, autonomy to innovate, and we're giving them that freedom. And the final one, which is linked to personal development, Leyla, which is what you asked, it's that mastery. So are we giving colleagues opportunity to learn and grow? Are we giving them opportunity to apply their skill sets? Are we recognizing their skill sets? So a great podcast called Squiggly Career will speak about the concept of being a strength spotter. So are you spotting people's strengths, and are you showcasing that colleagues are valued on the basis of their skill set? So that idea of mastery and personal development. So if you really think about those 5 components: fairness, sense of belonging, mastery, purpose, and autonomy, if you work on this as a manager, as a leader, as an owner of the organization, you will increase your level of happiness. Because ultimately, if you would tell me tomorrow, okay, Klaudia, I would like you to tell me how happy are my colleagues, this is what we will measure to establish that level of happiness.
And your point about mastery really links to the techniques that you use for yourself. So it wasn't your workplace saying you need to do this. You were like, okay, I'm going to research, I'm going to find out. And then that mastery. So again, it goes back to that point that you might get a promotion. It might not make you feel happy. So often what we have is a disconnect, right? We get something and we feel flat and we think, why is it making me feel this way? It's what I've wanted. And it's then learning about that mastery, or what is it that's triggering certain things, or, why am I having this reaction, that we can then start to unpick that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for personal use, when I use that model, when you're looking at maybe certain role opportunities or career progression opportunities, if you make a very conscious decision that, you know what, I'm going to accept this role because, let's say, I'm going to have more autonomy, but I know that my sense of belonging will go down because I won't be working with the team of people that I really love working, then at least you're making it as a conscious decision, rather, as you said, you accepted the role and then you're not happy and you're thinking, what's going on there? And then you're discovering, oh, actually, this is not in line with my skill sets. I don't believe in the purpose. And I actually didn't consciously thought about those elements. So yeah, really great point there, Leyla.
And I think also there's societal pressure, isn't there, that we should do this and we should do that. And often we get to those shoulds, and I've definitely had that this year, and I felt awful. I felt really upset, and it's brought things up that I didn't even know were there. And so it's that whole point, isn't it, that we are going to have rough days, rough months, rough weeks, but where is the kind of shiny quality to it and our overall satisfaction with life? And I think that's really important to hold on to. So Klaudia, you talked a little bit about it, but anything else you want to share in terms of, as an incredibly busy professional and all the work that you do, how you look after your own mental health? Any top 3 tips that you'd like to give listeners?
I guess the first really tip, it's more about, for me, being an explorer. And it's more about try out different things and see how you feel. I mean, there is so much different information out there. It's not necessarily saying and following that conventional wisdom, as you're saying, Leyla, this will make you happy, and if you're doing this, you should be happy. Try things, see how it works for you. I like trying different models, different tools, and then just seeing how it makes me feel. Again, I already mentioned my top 3 favorite. I always come back to mindfulness and breathing. I always come back to simple gratitude and the idea of how can I give my mind the rest. And already, again, because I'm with a learning and development profession, learning is a big thing for me. I like to learn all the time. And when I mean that, I don't mean that I'm going on whole day conferences, whole day courses. It's more about every day 10 minutes of this is interesting and I want to learn more about this. So yes, I think it's just an exploration. Try different things, see how we feel about that, and then just stick to them. That's the biggest aspect of building habits. I would say that my hack for implementing new habits is always something called habit stacking. So if I'm already doing something, I just stack on top some nice habits. So for instance, my mindfulness exercise, it's stuck to the fact that I open laptop and I open up all of the specific browsers that I need. But before I launch into them, I actually do a very quick mindful exercise. And I do that all the time because you know what? I open my laptop every day. So that basically triggers that. So I guess just think about what are you doing every day repeatedly, and then think about how you can add that small habit into your routine. The simpler, the quicker the habit, you will most likely stick to it. If you think, and again, I used to do that a lot, that, oh yes, I'm going to exercise every day for 1 hour and a half, and then I'm going to do this, and you're like, well, actually, I don't have 5 hours to spend on my well-being every day. I would love to, but I really don't. So it's just thinking really small and being kind to yourself as well. That, yeah, that's what I'm trying, and this is what my best is at this particular moment in time.
Yes, and I love that. And James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, he gives a really helpful example, doesn't he? Make your cup of tea or coffee and just take 3 deep breaths. There you go. That's better than doing nothing. Absolutely. And I think another thing that happens with what you've said is the consistency. So important, because often we don't feel the effects. We think, well, I still feel a bit rubbish. How is this working? But what I can say is when you stop doing it for more than a day, you think, sugar, this has hit me and I've got to get back on it. And so often we don't realize the transformation has happened while we are in the process of the consistency, and that's why it's even more important to stick with it. So thank you for saying that, Klaudia.
No, I have one actually funny example, Leyla Hill. So when we were trying the gratitude, I always struggle with gratitude because, I mean, we all prone to negativity bias, which means that our brain evolved to spot the negative because that's what protects us. I feel like my brain is has an extra negativity bias on top. But yeah, I remember practicing that. And, on Monday, I'm just like, this literally hurts my brain. And I really this is ridiculous. I don't feel grateful for anything. This is all a disaster. And then by Sunday, you just your brain concentrates on everything that's positive. And then, as you said, the moment you don't do it, your brain is still clinging to it, saying, oh, this is a nice thing, isn't it? Oh, this is something that is worth mentioning. So it's quite interesting how there is a small shift, which sometimes we don't notice till, as you say, we stop doing it, which is really interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Klaudia, if people want to work with you or check out your podcast, and I will, of course, include the link in the show notes, how should they do that?
You're very welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn just by searching my name. So would love to hear from you there. And then in terms of the podcast and all the information about everything that I do in terms of my writing as well, you can go to endhappiness.co.uk, my website, and you can find lots of great information there. There's also a free email course that you can sign up with lots of different techniques that I tried with some extra scientific tips. So you can actually see that, there is a science behind all the aspects that we're sharing, that, like, for instance, gratitude. There is so much amazing evidence how actually gratitude is rewiring our brain at cellular level. So some mind-blowing research, really. Check it out, see if you like it.
Thank you so much. What a brilliant, uplifting episode. And I think listeners are going to get so much from this. So I can't thank you enough for your time, your energy, and your openness, Klaudia.
Thank you so much, Leyla.
And we'll take care, listeners, and we'll be starting a new series. And of course, it's one of my favorite times of the year, Black History Month. So please stay tuned for amazing guest conversations and race equity as we move into October. Until then, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.